Hello, graduate exercise science students. I am Katie Woolman. I am the Director of Career and Professional Development at Lenoir-Rhyne University, and I am your career counselor. You have access to career services as a student at Lenoir-Rhyne University and for the rest of your lifetime free of charge as an alum. So that's a great resource for you to know about. And today I'm going to review some career branding information and professionalism information with you as you think about applying what you're learning in the classroom to your life after graduation, and even applying this information to the experiences that you're currently having. Again, my name is Katie. You are welcome to contact me at any point if I can help you with any of your marketing materials that we're going to talk about today, or any items of concern that you have regarding your career and your professional development. That is what I'm here for. I also encourage you to reach out and connect with me on LinkedIn. And if you would like to request an appointment, you're welcome to use this website, Handshake. Every student has an account set up for them by our office, and you just have to log in with your LR email and password, and that will allow you access to Handshake. It's our online career management system. It's essentially our virtual career center. We have our online jobs board here. So anytime an employer contacts me wanting to hire our students or alumni, I send them to Handshake. So you'll find lots of job postings, not only locally, but throughout the world on Handshake. You can also request appointments on Handshake and see what my availability is. It's a lot more efficient than us emailing back and forth and me telling you, oh, I have this time on Monday open. And then by the time you reply back, that time's gone. So Handshake makes that appointment setting process a lot more efficient. And there's also a resources section on Handshake that has sample resumes, interviewing tips, and lots of the information that I'm going to share with you today. So let's get started. When we are thinking about branding ourselves, and so this is career branding and professionalism talk today, one of the first things that we might send to an employer is a cover letter along with our resume. So in your toolkit here, I have a sample cover letter. With the sample, there are also comments out to the right that tell you what pieces of information are included in a cover letter. You may or may not be required to submit a cover letter for a job that you apply for. And so I encourage you just to pay attention to the application instructions. If the employer says that a cover letter is optional, I definitely suggest that you craft one. It can really help you stand out among the crowd if you do it well, and I'll tell you how to do that today. Also, I would say that, if the application instructions are very clear in terms of only wanting a resume or only wanting you to fill out an online application web form, then that's what you want to do. You want to follow the instructions of the employer as much as possible when applying for opportunities. So what we typically want to talk about in our cover letter, and our main thesis of our cover letter, is why we think we are a fit for the position that we're applying for. Alternatively, sometimes we might send what's called a prospecting cover letter. Maybe we don't know of a specific job opening, but we know of a company that we want to work for, or we know of a person that we want to work for. We can write a cover letter for that too. So the more targeted and tailored our cover letter and our resume are, the better. So think of the cover letter and the resume as your marketing tools, your branding tools. And we all know that targeted marketing is more effective. If you've got, and it's kind of scary these days how targeted our marketing is, how targeted our ads are that we see on our social media accounts and coming to our Google inboxes. It's a little scary how well that marketing is targeted, but it works, and it's scary, but it works well. So think about that. The employer that you are communicating with, frankly, does not have a lot of time for their job selection process, their candidate selection process. So the more targeted your marketing materials are, the easier it is for your employer to see that you're a fit for what they're looking for. So even part of that targeting is targeting a specific person in your greeting. If you do not know of a contact person, and a lot of times on job postings, we don't have a contact name or contact information, that's okay. You can use some version of team. So if I didn't know that Scott Bailey was the hiring manager, in this particular case, I might just say, Dear Garden Grove Memorial Team. Or physiotherapy team. I can get specific if I want to there. But right off the bat, targeting your greeting is going to help you stand out from other people who are sending the same cover letter to 20 different companies. In the first paragraph, you always want to put what job you're applying for and how you found out about it. Then you want to have some sort of general statement that you think you are a fit for what they're looking for. The focus of the letter is what's in it for them if they hire you. I've seen a lot of students on their cover letter talk about what they hope to gain from the work experience, and that's good to think through, but that's not the information that we're leading with in the cover letter. It's more about what's in it for them. So I want to give an overview of that, and then we want to be prepared to go into detail in the rest of the letter. Something else that we also want to do is not restate our resume in paragraph form. So if you find your cover letter sounding like a laundry list, I graduated from Lenore-Rhine University, I did my internship at Novant Health, I had work experience doing XYZ, that is not the best use of your cover letter space. Your employer will definitely look at your resume. So think about, rather than restating your resume, pulling things out and referring things that might be on your resume, but pulling out some of the soft skills, some of the personality, your motivations. Those types of things are harder to represent on a resume. Why you're passionate about, in this context, helping seniors recover from strokes. That is difficult to kind of put on the resume. The resume is more of the nuts and bolts. So cover letter is your opportunity to use those words that are indicative of your soft skills and your personality. You also want to use as many keywords as possible from that job description in your cover letter and in your resume. So for instance, if you see on a job description that the word creative is said multiple times in that job description, then that's something you're going to want to reference somewhere in your marketing materials. So again, targeting your cover letter to that job is one of the best things you can do. What I often suggest for people to do when they are in an active job search, and this applies to looking for an internship or any other kind of work experience that we might want to have, when we find a job description that we want to apply for, it's a great idea to cut and paste that job description into a Google Doc for yourself. And I say Google Doc because you can access your Google account from wherever you are, right? If you save it to your laptop, you may not always be at your laptop. So save that job description to a Google Doc and then highlight the keywords that you see. Keywords, words that appear more frequently, words that look really essential to the job. Those are things that employer is looking for. Highlighting those keywords on that job description in your Google Doc will help give your cover letter and your resume direction. And it will help you be aware of what you're trying to really focus on in terms of communicating that you're a fit for that position. Another thing you can do is, if that job description is really lengthy, or you're having a hard time zeroing in on the priorities of the job, you think, oh my gosh, there's so much I want to talk about in my marketing materials, but I don't have room for that. Usually we need to stick to a one-page cover letter. And resumes can be a little bit longer at the graduate level, but that varies depending on the setting that you're going into. So what I like to suggest is that you cut and paste that job description into a word cloud generator. So if you Google word cloud generator, you will find lots of free resources that allow you to do that. A word cloud is an image that is generated from your text, showing you the words that appear more frequently in larger font on that word cloud. This is something that I use when I work with students. So again, helping students with their cover letter, that's something I do on a regular basis. So I'm happy to help you with yours. And a couple years ago, I was helping a graduate student apply for a job. there were lots of pieces to the job description. So she and I were having a hard time zeroing in on what she should focus on in her cover letter. So we put the job description into a word cloud generator, and it really helped us zero in on the priorities that I feel like we were missing. So we emphasized technology, collaboration, leadership, the things that were really coming to the forefront there. And so actually she was able to get the interview and she received the job offer too. So we know that that was successful. So that's another trick you can use to help you craft an effective cover letter. Something else that you want to include is a little bit of research about the company. This is something that most applicants won't do, so it's a great way to stand out. You want to check out their website. You want to look at their mission statement. You want to see if they have any accolades that they are touting for future candidates. And you want to not take up a whole lot of space, but you want to take up some maybe a small paragraph, a couple of lines talking about why you're interested in working for the company and that you feel like you could be a good fit for their overall company, not just for the position. So again, if you just take a little bit of extra time to do some research, you're really going to help yourself stand out, and it's going to help prepare you for hopefully getting that interview later on down the road. And I'll talk about that here in a little bit. It's a great idea to follow up after you apply for jobs. And so this cover letter says that they plan to follow up in 1 week of their application. I will also tell you though that often nowadays, again, we don't really have contact information to follow up with somebody. So if you can follow up, it's a good idea. If you can't, then don't say you're going to in the cover letter. So you can modify that statement to say something more like, I hope you will agree that I'm a great fit for this opportunity. I hope to hear from you soon. I'm happy to have a conversation with you, something along those lines. And then another thing you can do is scan your real signature. This is not a real signature right here. It's kind of just a different font style. But you can scan your signature on a copier, save it as an image file, and insert it into the document. And that just gives a nice personal touch to your letter. And again, makes it seem like you gave very good effort in applying for the opportunity. So that's a cover letter for you. Here's a sample resume. So let's get started talking about that. Your name and your contact information go at the top. We really don't need to see your physical address anymore because it's not likely that that employer is going to want to mail you anything. Even once you get onboarded with a company, you're probably going to use direct deposit. You might put your address in certain pieces of paperwork, but it's really not something that's necessary. However, employers do tell me that they want to see where their applicants are coming from. So at least giving city and state in that heading is a good idea. Your phone number is really important to include, as is the greeting when someone calls you. So make sure that you have a friend call your number. We don't ever call ourselves. So have somebody call you and tell you or let you listen to what your voicemail is. You want to make sure it's professional, and you want to make sure it has your name in your voicemail message. Employers and recruiters have told me that it's frustrating when they call someone and they're not sure if they've dialed the right number or they've gotten the right person and your name isn't on your voicemail. So very simply, you could just say, thank you for calling. You have reached Janet Smith. Leave your message and I'll get back with you as soon as possible. Something very short and sweet and to the point is ideal. You then want to, of course, include your email address. You don't have to use the Lenore Ryan student email, but if you're using your personal Gmail account or other type of email account, make sure that it's professional. And make sure that it's easy to read and kind of clean and clear looking. You can also include your LinkedIn URL here in your heading if you have a LinkedIn profile. If you don't, that's something that's included here in the packet to teach you how to set up a LinkedIn account for yourself, how to create an effective profile. More and more companies are using LinkedIn, the social networking tool, if you've never heard of it, to find their new staff. So it's definitely something that's been utilized for many years, and with so many people working virtually, it's only increased in its use for recruitment. So it's a really good idea. If you do include your LinkedIn URL, you want to make sure that it's shortened. You can go into your profile and shorten your URL, and the handout that's here in your packet teaches you just how to do that. So name, all your contact information at the top, really important. Now you'll notice that this resume does not have an objective statement at the top. On traditional or maybe historically, what we might have seen on a resume is an objective statement. You don't necessarily need that anymore, especially if you are including your cover letter with your application. When you're including your resume as part of an application, that employer knows what your objective is. It's to get that job. So you can spend the limited space of your resume talking about what you bring to the table. As a current graduate student, we would recommend that you have education at the top of your resume. If you'd rather have it toward the bottom and emphasize your professional experience, you can certainly do that. But since you're in a master's program currently, we would recommend that you put that at the top. So you put the name of the institution, make sure you spell it correctly, make sure you write out the full degree that you're earning, and when you anticipate graduating, as well as your GPA. If it's above a 3.0, usually in most graduate programs, you have to be successful to continue earning the degree. So I've had some people tell me that a master's level GPA isn't necessary, but if you've got the room and it's a good one, it's good to include it. Then you'll still have your undergraduate degree listed as well. But within each section, we want to order things from most recent to least recent. That helps your reader see what you're currently doing and work back in time from there. This sample resume has a section for professional certifications and development. Often in your field of exercise science, there are certifications that your future employer is going to want to see that you have. So feel free to put those types of information, those certifications that you have right after education. It makes sense that they're going together or going one right after the other. And this person's also put development here, so professional certifications and development. And so they're putting conference membership and attendance. And I think that can be a great idea too, just to show that you are ready to enter your profession. Next, we want to highlight related experience. So we want to emphasize the related experience that we've had. We like to call it experience because sometimes, especially in schooling, we may not get paid for a certain experience. It may be an internship or a practicum or something like that in order to learn and develop our skills. So if we call a section work experience, that's limited to what we've been paid for. But if we call a section related experience, that helps us pull out what is most related for that employer to see. And this is the main thing that they're looking for. Employers tell me all the time, they're prioritizing candidates who have experience that is related to what they want somebody to be able to do. So having a section heading called that really helps you zero in on what they are likely to be looking for. You want to have the name of the institution, your title, the city and the state, the dates, and a couple of bullet points. There's no rule about how many you want to have, but rather than paragraphs and full sentences, we use bulleted phrases that describe our skill sets, accomplishments, and tasks that we have experienced. And so we start with an action word, and we have a short phrase to describe, in a nutshell, what we've done at these experiences. And again, this is an opportunity to insert keywords. So if you see in your job description that they want you to develop exercise programs and you've done that in the past, you definitely want to make sure that you're putting that here on your resume. Now, I probably don't have to tell you this, but we want to maintain our integrity on our resume too. So let's say that they have a phrase in that job description that you've never done, well, then don't put that on your resume. Obviously, again, I probably don't have to tell you that, but we want to match the keywords and those tasks and skills as much as possible. So again, we might go to the same resume every time we apply for a job, but we really want to tailor that resume to the job itself, not only for the human beings who are going to be reviewing your resume, but for the AI that is likely to review your resume. AI stands for, of course, artificial intelligence. A lot of larger employers like hospital systems and even large universities will use some form of artificial intelligence or an applicant tracking system, sometimes it's abbreviated ATS, to weed through the candidates' resumes before they get sent to human eyeballs and human brains to be able to interpret content in a resume. So again, that's why it's even more important to make sure you've got some great keywords from your field and from your job description on that resume so that it can get picked up by those applicant tracking systems. Then you might have some other experience that you want to include, volunteer experience, or maybe some professional experience that's unrelated to your field. That can be a great thing to put on your resume. You may not take up as much space describing those experiences because the related experience is really the focus. But let's say you're a career changer. I myself am a career changer, and that previous background, although seemingly unrelated to what I ended up doing, was actually a real selling point when I was in graduate school, and I was pleasantly surprised that it was. But that's something that I always tried to include on my resume so that my future employers could see what made me stand out and what was a little different about me in a positive way. So something that I would encourage you to do is to have what we might call a master resume. And that's one in which we're not limiting our content to a page. All your previous work experiences, volunteer experiences, if you were involved in your school or played a sport like this person did, have that on a full version of your resume. It can be longer than a page. And then when you apply for specific jobs, create a 1 to 2 page targeted resume. I encourage you, as you are talking with people in your field, to ask them what the standards are for your field. Again, those vary from place to place and from industry to industry. So it's a really good idea to get some advice as to the length on your resume, but usually it's 1 to 2 pages right out of a master's program. Now, hopefully, if your cover letter and your resume have been effective, you are going to get invited to have an interview. It's likely that the interview might start out virtually these days, whether that's a phone screening interview or a Zoom interview. And then hopefully at some point, especially with what you're studying, you will get to interview in person. But of course, a lot of interviews happen virtually these days. And this handout and a couple of handouts after this are really helpful in preparing for your interview. So of course, you want to prepare ahead of time. And you're going to want to go back to that research that you started off with when you wrote your cover letter, research about the company, research of why you wanted to work with them. Go back to that, go back to the website, and make sure you know as much as possible about that company, as well as the people that you're interviewing with. Sometimes you're not given an interview agenda ahead of time. I've had a lot of students graduating that I've been helping this semester, and they're not always being given the full interview agenda. They might be told, okay, show up to this location at 9 a.m. Great, what's going to happen once I get there? So it's well within your rights as a job seeker to ask for the full agenda of the interview and who you will be speaking with and meeting with. So that you can, again, be as prepared as possible and know, okay, I'm going to be meeting with a group of 3 people, then I'm going to be meeting with 1 person. I'm going to get a tour of the facility, so I need to wear comfortable shoes, those sorts of things. So the more you know, the better you can be prepared. You also want to know yourself. I know that sounds silly, but obviously we want to be prepared to talk about our strengths, things we need to improve upon. I don't like the word weaknesses, things that we're proud of, goals that we have. And so I'll show you a great way to get ready to talk about yourself. One of the best ways you can get prepared for doing an interview is doing a mock interview or a practice interview with a career center. We are open throughout the summer as well as during the fall and spring semesters, and we do a lot of mock interviews. And so we can do them over Zoom. Those are handy because we can record them and you can watch yourself later. We don't share that with anybody other than you. We can also have an in-person interview if that's something that you want to practice. So again, you would schedule that on Handshake. You'll see that there's an appointment type specifically for mock interviews. What I would ask you for is a copy of the job description that you're applying for or that you've applied for, and your cover letter and your resume or any other application materials that you sent in, so we can give you a really good hands-on experience that's targeted to what you might have. And that's a really good way to prepare. You also can practice in front of the mirror, practice by answering questions and recording yourself on your phone. There are multiple ways to practice, but for most of us, we need a little practice before going into the interview. We also want to be prompt and prepared. So 10 minutes early is a great time to log on to the Zoom or to show up to the interview location. We do want to bring extra copies of our resume in physical form if we're going to an in-person interview, and we want to have our list of questions for that interviewer ready to go beforehand. We want to turn our cell phone off or leave it in the car. I'm sure we're not going to leave it at home these days. I wouldn't actually recommend that, but at least turn it on silent or do not disturb so that you aren't caught looking distracted during the interview. The only other thing I'll say about that is sometimes we interview when we are maybe on call for a family member. So true story, I was doing a mock interview with an MBA student recently, and we were talking about the phone thing. And he said, well, actually, my wife is pregnant and due any day now. And I said, sir, you need that phone on you. On behalf of your wife, have that phone handy. And what you can do is tell the interviewer, normally I would turn my phone on do not disturb or leave it in the car. However, I am on call for a family member right now. And so I do need to at least have it on vibrate, and I apologize in advance if I have to take a phone call. So you notice I didn't give lots of details about that. It's not their business yet. And we don't want them to think about any red flags as, oh gosh, this person's going to have a family emergency happen all the time. No, they can know the details later, but if you want to share it with them. But it's good to let them know if you are on call for someone, then people are more important than interviews. So you might still want to have your phone on vibrate. Okay. Then we want to, again, this is part of kind of like getting prepared to talk about ourselves. We want to develop what's called STAR stories. STAR stories are ways to explain our strengths in a very effective storytelling format. So we want to identify our top 3 to 5 strengths as they relate to the position. So again, what are they looking for? Let me emphasize those things: creativity, reliability, collaboration, whatever it was that we noticed, we want to zero in on that. And we want to think of specific times when we displayed those strengths. So STAR stands for situation, task, action, result. This is how you frame your story. Storytelling, again, is really effective in interviews. However, if we don't have a framework, we can ramble a little bit when we're telling a story. So these are the items that we focus on. We set up the situation, talk about the task at hand, emphasize the action that we took, and then talk about the positive results that occurred based on our actions. This is a great thing to do ahead of time. And a very common type of interview question is a behavioral-based interview question. This sounds like, tell me about a time when you faced a challenge with a coworker or a colleague. How did you handle that? Well, if you already have your STAR stories in your back pocket, you can have those at the top of your mind and be ready to share those stories. It makes answering those types of questions a lot easier. During the interview, first and foremost, we want to be ourselves. Yes, it's our professional version of ourselves. We want to show our true personality in the interview. This is what employers are looking for, and this is what will help you determine if this opportunity is the best fit for you. Can I be myself with these people? Can I show my sense of humor? Or can I show my energetic personality? Or can I show my more introverted personality and it be a fit with the team? So that is definitely a good thing to do. Do not try to be somebody that you're not. You want to show your genuine personality in the interview. You do, of course, want to act professionally, dress appropriately, polished and confident, because first impressions are so important. And what you wear to the interview nowadays can vary from setting to setting. So when you ask for the interview agenda, you can also ask for expected attire if that's something you're comfortable asking about. And usually the person setting up the interview is happy to tell you that. Also, if you have a networking contact at the company, that's another way you can ask about what attire expectations are. When in doubt, dressing a couple steps above what you think you might wear day to day is a really good rule of thumb. And most people feel more confident when they're dressed more professionally. You can always get less formal once you're there versus backtracking the other way. By that, I mean, let's say you show up to the interview in a khakis, a blazer, and a tie, and everybody else is in khakis and golf shirts. Often you might find as an exercise science professional, you need to be comfortable day to day doing the work that you're doing. And you might need to be, not wear restrictive blazers and golf shirt and khakis may be the thing that you're going to wear day to day once you get hired. But if you show up more professionally dressed, they're going to take you more seriously as an applicant. And let's say you show up and it's hot and you're really uncomfortable in that blazer, you can always take that blazer off and get more relaxed once you're there. But it's hard to show up less formal and get more formal once you're there. That would be very hard to do. Nowadays, in person, we want to give a firm handshake. If we're okay with that, the interviewer may not be interested in shaking your hand. So I encourage you to mirror their body language and do as they do. Enthusiastic eye contact and enthusiastic body language really demonstrate that you want to be there. And we can show that even on a Zoom call. So by giving eye contact, we want to look in our camera, and I'm modeling that for you right now. I'm not looking at my screen, I'm looking at my camera so that you perceive that I'm giving you direct eye contact. That's really important in any interview. And in Zoom world, we have to think of things a little differently. While I'm talking about Zoom world, we also want to make sure that our camera angle is either at eye level or a little bit above eye level, and that the lighting in our room is sufficient enough for the person to see us. So we want to test all that out ahead of time. Again, with a Zoom interview, you're likely to be at home. And that is perfectly fine to be in your bedroom or be in your kitchen when you're doing an interview. That's not going to reflect negatively on you. However, you want to be aware of what's in your background, your lighting, and everybody has a feature on Zoom where you can blur your background. It's in the video section of your Zoom. So you can blur your background if you don't want that to be distracting to your interviewer. And again, the purpose of the interview is to learn about each other. So we're focused on that, not what's happening in the background. Along those lines, in order to learn about each other, we want to also have plenty of questions for the interviewer, and not just so we look like we have some questions to ask, but we want to be mindful about the type of work that we're going to be doing, what's important to us, and get a really good sense of that person's leadership style, how they measure success, and those questions will help us evaluate if this is the right opportunity for us. So we want to answer questions honestly and thoroughly. If we get stumped, just know that can happen. It's not a big deal. Stay calm and ask the interviewer to repeat or clarify the question or come back to the question. Let's say you're asked a question, you're like, oh my gosh, I have no idea how to answer that. What you can say is, that is a great question. I want to give you a really thoughtful answer. Can I have a minute to think about that? And can we come back to that at the end? And that will likely give you some time to come up with an answer. These are common questions. I encourage you, again, to ask your network what questions you're asked in the exercise science field. We have a list of exercise science type questions that we use with students who are doing mock interviews in your program, but it also depends on the type of job you're applying for. You can take that job description once again, really zero in what they're wanting somebody to do and base your questions off of that. That's often what I do in the mock interviews that I have with students. So after the interview is over with, we want to ask for a business card from the interviewer. This allows us to write a thank you note. So usually an email thank you note is preferred these days, but if you're able to write a handwritten thank you note and deliver that note to them in the next 24 to 48 hours, that's great too. But email is perfectly acceptable these days. And so that's a great thing to be able to do. And again, another way to help you stand out, because most people don't write thank you notes anymore. Now, it's also a good idea to reflect after you're done with the interview. Pat yourself on the back. Practice makes progress, and think about strengths, things about what you did well, what you can improve upon, and what you learned about the company to see if it's going to be a fit for you. This is a fabulous little like Cliff's Notes about yourself to fill out before the interview, and it covers a lot of what we just talked about. So if you fill this out before an interview, you will be more than ready to answer any questions they might have for you. These are great questions that you can ask the interviewer. So again, when we do mock interviews, a lot of our students do not know what to ask. And so this list, while it is very broad, can apply to very realistic career fields and realistic situations so that you can determine if this is going to be the right position for you. What are the biggest challenges the person in this position will face? Can they describe a day or week in the position? Now, you may or may not need to ask that question. Let's say that you've been interning with a company and you know what happens day to day. You don't need to ask that. What would a successful first year in the position look like? I love that. I also love, how will the success of the person in this position be measured? Who's going to evaluate you and what do they care about? How long did the previous person in the role hold the position? What has turnover been like? That's not something they may talk about, but you may uncover a red flag if there's been a lot of turnover. How would you describe the culture here? What type of people really thrive? That's a great question. It's also important to ask them about their management style. If they're going to be your future supervisor, let's make sure there's a fit there. So you can read the rest of these questions, but they're very helpful. And even what's your timeline for getting back to candidates is a great question to ask. And often we leave an interview and we think, well, what's next here? And I'll go ahead and tell you, everybody takes longer than they think they're going to. So they're going to say they're going to get back with you in a week. It might be 2 weeks, but that doesn't mean you didn't get the job. Here is a handy tip sheet about thank you notes. So some things to think about, and then a sample thank you note. Now, it's very unlikely that you are going to get asked illegal questions in your interview, but I do like to equip students with this information. So there are certain aspects of you that a hiring manager is not supposed to make their decisions on. So we are not supposed to discriminate in this country for fair hiring standards and practices based on some of these areas: age, where we're from originally, race, religion, marital status, personal characteristics such as how tall you are, how much you weigh, disabilities, arrest record, military. And this handout's a little dated. In 2020, the federal government also created a law where it became illegal at the federal level to discriminate against folks based on their gender or gender expression. So that's also now protected. But I like this handout because it shows you the illegal version of the question and if there is a legal version. Here is some information about LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is a social networking tool that helps people network with each other, and recruiters love to use it for recruiting purposes. So this handout is from LinkedIn, and it takes you through 10 easy steps to create an effective profile and use LinkedIn for job searching. So this is a very, very helpful guide. And again, if you're interested in working on your LinkedIn profile and it's not something you're familiar with, I'm happy to meet with you about that. Here are some things you may feel like you don't need, but I just like to give graduate students this overview of professionalism as you're entering the world of work or changing careers, depending on what your situation is. Professional emails are so important, and especially when we are first corresponding with a future employer and when we first get started at a company. I'm not telling you to not care about professionalism once you start working at a place, but especially in the beginning, we want to have we want to be mindful about being professional in all our communications. So here's a sample email for you. And then a little bit more about email etiquette at work. So we have to, again, just be mindful that not only is email a form of communication, but it's a form of communication that can be saved. And so we always want to watch our tone and use our best possible manners and professionalism in our emails. Again, once we get used to working with our colleagues, we might not feel like we have to be so formal, but we always want to be careful that those are communications of a record. And people have gotten in lots of trouble for being inappropriate in their emails at large organizations and people very high up. So it is something that you want to be careful about, not only because you could get in trouble, but because professionalism isn't just about being formal, it's about being polite and respectful to everybody that you work with, not just your supervisor, but all of your colleagues. Professionalism in general is the next item here in your toolkit. And so everyone can be professional no matter what role you play in the company. And so here are just some tips that I thought were very helpful when it comes to being a true professional. And some of these you might see lots of mistakes getting made at your workplace, but you can make sure that your behavior is as positive as possible, as professional as possible. And also you can see that I've got the web address of these professionalism tips included in all of my handouts here. Okay, so one of the last things that we have in your toolkit is very important, in my opinion. So I hope you've been able to hang in there with me to this point. Salary negotiation tips. This is an article, and I've got the web address here at the bottom, about how to engage in a salary negotiation with either a prospective employer or with a current employer. And so this is a great article that gives you an overview of what negotiation with your salary is, how you can handle this process, because it's certainly something that's a little complicated, and most people aren't as comfortable thinking about negotiating their salary. So I have given this to a lot of people over the years, and they have come back to me and said, wow, that really worked. Thank you. So we want you to be paid what you're worth and for you to be able to advocate for yourself. So again, I'll just kind of scroll through this article. This is another thing I'm happy to talk through with you. And essentially what I can tell you is that the more you do your research, the better. So here at the end of the article, we have some pay scale calculators and resources. So these are all websites where you can look up salary data and use that in your negotiation. Basically, if you've done your research and you know what people in your field and with your skill set and level of education are typically paid, then that helps you leverage a fair wage at your prospective company. And so I always recommend that people look at least 3 websites to get a really good sense of what the numbers might look like, and then go into the conversation armed with that information. And then the last tip here is that the negotiation period occurs between when you get the offer and your acceptance. So again, hopefully you've been successful. Your cover letter rocked, your resume was amazing, you did a great interview, then you got the job offer. You are not required to accept that job offer right away. Usually you want to ask for time to consider the offer. I always suggest that folks check in with their future employer, the person offering you the job, and say, may I have until Monday to give you my answer? May I have until a certain date? Is that, checking to make sure it's going to work with their timeline, because you don't want to seem disinterested in the offer. However, you do want to be intentional about making your decision. It's a big decision, and you want to make sure you have all the information you need in order to make that decision. So if they've not given you information about full compensation or salary or benefits, that's a great time to ask that question, and then only accept after you've gotten all the information that you can gather. let's see, what does it say? It's best not to attempt to negotiate with a current or future employer after accepting an offer or giving a resignation. So, you want to make sure that you talk with, if you, let's say I'm at a current job and I get a better job offer, I want to talk with my current supervisor and say, before I accept that new job, and say, hey, I just want to let you know I've been offered this job. They want to pay me a lot more. You would say it differently. I just want to let you know, I'll say it professionally here. I just want to let you know I've received a job offer from XYZ company. The compensation is higher than what I'm making here. I wanted to let you know and give you a chance to negotiate to keep me here if you would like to do so. Give them a chance to do that. If they're not interested, then you can fully accept that new job confidently. But sometimes your current employer will give you an offer you can't refuse, and you do not want to accept a new job and have to renege on that job. That unfortunately makes you look like the bad guy in the scenario. So make sure you have all the information you need before accepting the position. And my hope is that with all of this great information that I've shared with you today, that you will have lots of job offers to choose from. And I know that the value of your education at Lenoir-Rhyne University is going to ensure that you're going to be very marketable and very successful in your future career. And just remember that I'm here to help you in any way with those items. Here's my contact information again. And don't hesitate to reach out with any questions or concerns you have about any of the information that I've shared today. Best of luck to you, and go Bears.